Hey guys, alright? Welcome everyone. We start at a military base in North Korea, with a team of G.I. Joe soldiers, including Duke and his new partner Marvin. They stealthily enter the site using their technological weapons. Duke searches for an ally of theirs and soon finds him, then asks the sharpshooter Mouse to start a distraction by shooting towards the Koreans. Duke's team begins to infiltrate the site, taking down any soldiers that come their way. The man is found, and they quickly depart without being seen. Later on, the team of soldiers, along with others, celebrate the success of the mission, including Jay and Flint. Captain Duke has been leading his new team since the end of the war against the nanomites. The enemies, Commander Cobra and McCullough, known as Destro, are imprisoned, but the whereabouts of the agents Zartan and the ninja Storm Shadow are unknown. In Tokyo, Japan, at Mr. Blind's building, a blind master, Jinx, Storm Shadow's cousin, undergoes a blind test to join the Joe's team. Nearby her is the ninja Snake Eyes, who will be responsible for testing her, and the first phase for Jinx is to defend herself. Unarmed, Snake Eyes tries to grab a strand of her hair, but Jinx is very agile and manages to defend herself, injuring the ninja's hand in the process. A fight ensues between the two, and when they both end up in a small pool, Jinx is tricked and ends up losing the fight. The master teaches her that before she can win a fight, she must first find peace. Frustrated, Jinx leaves the area, and then the master gifts Snake Eyes with a black carbon fiber sword and gives him a mission, saying that the enemy is planning a new attack and he needs to stop them. Duke and his friend Marvin play video games when they hear on the news about the attacks happening in the capital Islamabad and rumors of imminent nuclear attacks. Sometime later, in Washington, at the Pentagon base, the military analyzes the possibility that the president of Pakistan is already dead. On one hand, they are not allies, but one of the military leaders says that the country is in chaos, and as they talk without taking any initiative, time passes, and the worst approaches, as there are nuclear weapons in the region, and the real enemies of the Americans may seize these weapons. The American president then authorizes an invasion to take control of these weapons and asks the G.I. Joe team to take on the mission. Hours later, we see Duke briefing his team on the location of the weapons, and they will enter the facility and retrieve them shortly after. The team descends from the aircraft and begins the mission. They quickly infiltrate, and along with the other teams of soldiers, they shoot at the enemy soldiers. Duke heads towards where a warhead is being carried, and with the support of his companions, they kill all the enemies and reach the weapon. The group retrieves the weapons and returns to the Joe's military base. The president is informed of the success of the Joes and is relieved to have possession of the nuclear weapons. Moments later, the president leaves the White House, accompanied by his guard Xander, and goes to a secret compartment underground, where a truth is revealed. The current president is actually Agent Zartan, genetically modified to be identical to the real president, who is now his prisoner. The president says that Zartan will be unmasked, but he cuts his face, showing that the nanomite technology in his body regenerates him and is encoded to return to the shape of the president's face. He says that the Joes are about to be eliminated since their new secret organization, with the symbol of a cobra eye, will take their place. The purpose of the visit is to torture the president to disclose the location of the prisoners Destro and the commander. However, the president shows rigidity in speaking. Back at the Joes, Duke and his partner observe the aircraft arriving earlier than expected. Suddenly an attack begins against the Joes. Missiles are launched, and shots kill many of them. Duke goes to help Flint, while Marvin calls for air support. Suddenly, a bomb hits the covering car, and Duke is hit. Not seeing him, the team runs from the site and goes to the well to escape the bombs hitting the base. Moments later, the military who attacked them descend and check the base to see if anyone is alive, and when they look into the well, they find no one. Fortunately, the Joes hid underwater and go unnoticed. The next morning, President Zartan talks about the attack in the country Pakistan and blames the Joes, accusing Snake Eyes of the death of the president of Pakistan. He also says that the Joes plan to steal the nuclear warheads, and this event leads him to invite the heads of state to negotiate nuclear disarmament worldwide. Zartan adds that his team of special agents, called Cobra, managed to exterminate the Joes. However, we see that some Joes are alive and manage to escape from the well. The group observes with sadness the destruction left by the Cobra agents and affirm among themselves that they will seek revenge. The scene shifts, and we see the entrance to the underground prison of Einsargen, in Germany. For some reason, Snake Eyes allowed himself to be captured, and the prison director, James, receives him, surprised to see him there. James then takes Snake Eyes in an elevator that descends to a very deep depth, into an old mine in Germany, the deepest in the world. After reaching the lowest level, James shows two tubes where two prisoners are in a deep sleep but oriented. This means that their bodies are paralyzed, but their minds are still connected and aware of everything around them. The prisoners are Destro and Commander Cobra, and now Snake Eyes will become another prisoner. When James goes to remove the ninja's mask, he discovers that it is actually Storm Shadow, leaving the director surprised. However, he leaves the ninja's swords hanging on the stairs and exits the facility. In the desert, Marvin tells his team that they are now on their own. As for the government and their families, they are dead, and he believes almost 100% that the order came from the most powerful man, the president. However, he still trusts Snake Eyes, so they need to find him. After walking for a few kilometers, they hear a plane, and when they look beyond a sand dune, they find a small airport, which means a chance to return home. After Storm Shadow was placed in the tube, someone outside the prison releases small flying robots to approach the entrance to the facility. The ninja, observing through the surveillance cameras, sees the robots and, being well trained, forces himself into a cardiac arrest, forcing the doctors to remove him from the tube to resuscitate him. As they begin to remove him, the ninja initiates his attack and kills one of them inside the tube. The guards shoot at him and break the tube, and Storm Shadow uses his skills to kill those who confront him. At the same time, outside, the small robots explode, killing the external guards of the facility. As more guards appear in the prison, the ninja easily kills them with his united swords. James is cornered, but he grabs a defibrillator and uses it against the wet ground, paralyzing Storm Shadow, giving him a chance to escape. Then the ninja frees Commander Cobra. After that, they wait for a while, leaving Destro still imprisoned at the site. An unknown person begins their entry into the facility, blowing everything around them. Upon entering the installation, they detonate some bombs, thus clearing the way for their fugitive companions, and they introduce themselves as Firefly. James, still alive, shoots at the gas pipe, causing explosions that hit Storm Shadow's back, leaving him injured. In the distance, the real Snake Eyes observes them, and when he hears footsteps approaching him, he quickly hides and confronts the person, discovering it to be Jinx, who says she wants to help him on the mission. Sometime later, the commander arrives at a secret installation, where soldiers prepare the ultimate weapon, called Zeus, for launch. Zartan introduces himself to Commander Cobra and says the three Joes survived, but Firefly says not to worry because he will catch them as soon as they slip up. Back at the Joes, Marvin returns to his old town and reunites with an old street friend, Stoop. He offers shelter to Marvin and says he will support him in whatever he needs. The group heads to an old gym, and with some equipment there, Jay says she will send a coded signal via radio so that if any Joes are alive, they will know where they are. Meanwhile, in a secret facility in the icy mountains, Storm Shadow undergoes procedures to heal his wounds, and not far from there, Snake Eyes and Jinx drive a car in the snow when the signal from Lieutenant Jay reaches them. Jinx returns the signal and says they are on a mission to stop the ninja Storm Shadow. Unfortunately, the two are too far away to help them. Moments later, Jay calls her partners to inform them of differences she found in some of the president's speeches, where he exchanged words he used to always say for more popular ones. There are more details, such as how he behaves in meetings, and this makes them suspect that the president is actually an imposter. Marvin says they can trust a man, after whom the Joe group is named. The group enters his seemingly empty house, but suddenly someone emerges behind them. His name is Joe Colton, and he knows very well who they are. However, Marvin explains the reason he is there, showing the identifications of his fallen soldier brothers. Then, in a meeting, the group discusses their belief that the current president is an imposter, which leaves Joe pensive. Still wanting to help, he offers information, giving them the location of a chief of staff. Later, the chief of staff leaves a poker game and, upon seeing a beautiful woman on the street, hangs up the phone and approaches her. It's actually Jay in disguise, and when the man helps her, she asks to cross the street, but in the brief traffic jam, a car quickly picks them up. Marvin injects a tranquilizer into the chief, who will forget the incident in a few minutes, but before that, he will help them. Meanwhile, in the icy mountains, Jinx and Snake Eyes approach the location where Storm Shadow is, and they begin rappelling down to reach the site. When Storm Shadow is freed, he puts on his clothes but soon notices that the place is under attack. As he exits the room, he encounters Snake Eyes, immediately throwing shurikens at the ninja, but he uses his weapon to destroy them before they hit him. Bullets run out, and the two engage in a blade fight. They both prove to be excellent fighters, and they both fall outside the building. Snake Eyes manages to overpower him until Jinx puts him to sleep with a sleepy gas. Then they prepare to leave, but many other ninjas surround them on the bridge. The two jump, and as they were already prepared, they use ropes to advance to a safe point, and the enemies following them fall into the abyss. Some ninjas continue to pursue them along the cliff, and after tying Storm Shadow's body to the rocks, they proceed to confront the ninjas and defeat them by cutting the ropes holding them. When more ninjas arrive at their position, Snake Eyes pushes Jinx away and shoots a snowblock, causing an avalanche that carries the enemies into the abyss. Jinx watches, thinking they lost them, but Snake Eyes soon appears, thus completing the mission. At a celebration where the president is present, Jay, elegantly dressed in red, arrives late but manages to enter the venue by hacking the system and putting her name on the list. After the speech, President Zartan approaches Jay, and she takes the opportunity to get close to him and dance a bit. This gives her the opportunity to take a strand of his hair. However, Xander is watching. The strand is analyzed, and the DNA matches that of the soldier Zartan, so Marvin asks Jay to leave the premises, but the president asks for another dance. Xander discovers Jay's true identity and orders the units to be on alert, but when he goes to the hall, fortunately, he doesn't find her. Security takes the president elsewhere, and while Jay looks for an exit, Marvin prepares a surprise attack to kill his enemy. Unfortunately, Firefly's robots approach him, forcing him to retreat from the hiding place. When he leaves the area, Firefly awaits him, and they engage in hand-to-hand combat. The enemy gains the upper hand in the fight using an iron bar and pushes Marvin into the street. As Firefly is about to shoot Marvin, Flint runs him over with a car. Then, injured, Firefly is forced to retreat on his motorcycle. Back in Tokyo, Storm Shadow is taken to Master Blind's clan, and he asks for information about Commander Cobra's plan, otherwise, he will be killed by the same sword he used to kill their former master. In his defense, Storm Shadow reveals that his enemies made him end up where he is, as they plan the master's death, making everyone, including his brothers and friends, believe that he killed his master. To prove he's telling the truth, he quickly grabs his sword and makes Snake Eyes defend himself, causing his sword to break. Storm Shadow affirms that the Arashikage clan's blade does not break, proving that they conspired against him. Master Blind then questions him about who could have planned this, his friend Snake Eyes or the master he sought shelter from. With this, Storm Shadow becomes pensive and realizes that his enemy is Zartan, a violent man and master of disguise. Then Blind asks what Commander Cobra plans, so they can defeat the enemy together. Back at the hideout where the real president is, he is forced by Commander Cobra to scan his eyes to activate the nuclear warhead launch case. While Marvin's team was having dinner, footsteps are heard, so they prepare, and when they move to intercept the intruders, they discover it's Snake Eyes and Jinx. And along with them, Storm Shadow, the only one who knows about Commander Cobra's plan. He says that the meeting scheduled with the leaders is a trap for them. The team goes to Joe's house the next morning, and he shows them the arsenal hidden throughout the house, extremely powerful firearms, but Storm Shadow prefers his old sword. Later, the group recalls the plan, where they will approach Zartan and try to get the briefcase. Marvin divides the team, and then they initiate the plan. In the complex where the meeting with the leaders is to be held, President Zartan begins his speech, attempting to convince the leaders to disarm nuclear weapons. Seeing the obvious refusal from all, he stands up and declares that from that moment on, he will be at war with all of them. To demonstrate his seriousness, he grabs the briefcase and launches several nuclear missiles toward the countries of the present leaders, forcing them to abandon their nuclear weapons. Some leaders retaliate by launching their own missiles in response to President Zartan's attack. Meanwhile, the Joe team stealthily enters the location, eliminating some of Zartan's enemy soldiers. At the American president's estate, Joe and Jay arrive, shooting at the soldiers at the gate, clearing the way for them to enter. Back in the leaders' meeting room, as part of the plan, Zartan expresses concern for the innocent civilians who would die from the imminent missile destruction, so he proposes destroying all weapons. He then activates the destruction of his missiles, and the others follow suit. After this accomplishment, Zartan begins talking about his new project, called Zeus, which involves 7 Zeus satellites orbiting the Earth, each equipped with technology that doesn't require launching weapons but dropping them from above onto designated targets. Suddenly, Commander Cobra enters the room with his soldiers and demonstrates his weapon by launching a missile toward London. Zeus is a powerful weapon that uses gravity to its advantage, attracting missiles at a very high speed. capable of causing greater destruction than a nuclear bomb. Seeing the devastation caused in London, the leaders become terrified, questioning what Commander Cobra wants, to which the enemy replies that he wants all the power. The White House is the first to be changed to have the Cobra commander's flag, and he is intimidating the leaders. When Storm Shadow initiates the attack plan, along with Jinx and his ally Snake Eyes, Marvin is authorized and, with a tank, sets out to attack the other military vehicles, destroying them using his piloting skills and marksmanship. Meanwhile, Jinx leads the other leaders to the exit point, defeating the soldiers that appear, and the Ninja Brothers defeat the remaining soldiers and try to stop President Zartan. When Storm Shadow goes after Zartan, his brother lends him the sword he received from Master Blind. Meanwhile, Jinx gets cornered, but before the worst happens, Snake Eyes appears and helps her deal with the remaining enemies. Storm Shadow confronts his former mentor and now enemy Zartan. The ninja approaches Zartan's location, and the hidden Zartan confronts him from the other side. A red ninja engages in combat with Storm Shadow, while Zartan tries to shoot him. Fortunately, Storm Shadow pushes them away and manages to hide. Then, very quickly, he kills the enemy ninja, and when Zartan goes to the location, he is surprised by his former student, who threatens him with the sword. However, the situation changes with the surprise entry of Firefly's robotic insects, which explode, leaving both of them incapacitated, while Firefly grabs the Cobra commander's briefcase. At the location where the real president is, the Joe duo of Joe and Jay sneak in and kill the enemy guards. When the others from the hideout go to check, they fall into a trap, and Joe kills them, thus freeing the entrance, leaving only Xander, who has the president at gunpoint. The Joes enter and manage to free the president, injuring his arm in the process, but leaving Xander as dead. Back where the ninja Storm Shadow was, he is confronted by Zartan, who points a gun at him. When the enemy fires, at a surprising speed, the ninja cuts the bullet in half and throws the sword into Zartan's chest, ultimately killing his enemy, and thus the nanomites in his body stop functioning, revealing his true face. Firefly takes the briefcase, while Commander Cobra escapes in his helicopter and waits for the Zeus satellites to align to attack again. Seeing Firefly escaping, Marvin grabs his .50 caliber gun and intercepts the enemy, destroying his escape motorcycle. However, still alive, he boards the boats and escapes on one of them but continues to be pursued by Marvin. Soldier Marvin destroys his enemy's boat and pulls the boat to the water's edge, where he sees the briefcase Firefly left, but Firefly confronts him, and they engage in gunfire and hand-to-hand combat. Marvin then manages to overpower him and knocks him out. Before the Zeus satellites launch the missiles, Marvin manages to halt the launch and uses the briefcase to destroy all the satellites. When Firefly wakes up, he tries to launch one of his robotic insects against Marvin, but Marvin has the detonator and finishes him off by exploding him. The Joe team reunites, with Storm Shadow handing the sword to Jinx and then leaving. After completing the mission, the four Joes gather to return to their homes, free from any accusations. Marvin returns home and shows his family that he is still alive. Days later, the real American president makes a statement, honoring the G.I. Joes and showing the world that this organization has once again saved the world.